Okay, well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree here today with another episode of the Simply Inspired podcast. And today I'm joined by a very, very special guest, ultra runner Woody Felton. Hopefully, I'm saying that the right way. This man runs some incredible distances for Autistic Awareness. Recently, over 400 miles, 428 miles, I believe, to raise awareness of autism and to inspire other autistic people to find goals that inspire them. So, as always, with my podcast today, we won't just be talking about sports, but we'll be going a bit deeper into topics related to mindset and related to how anything is possible with the right dream and the right hard work. So, Woody, thank you for coming on the show and just thank you for taking time out of your day for this. I'm very grateful for that.
No, thank you, Liam, for helping us raise awareness to autism. Because obviously it's close to my heart for so many reasons.
Absolutely. Well, like I said to you at the beginning, if even a handful more people become aware of the work you're doing through this talk, then, our work is done from that point of view. And I think it would be more than a few, but even if it's a few, then I'm happy with that. So let's start with autism itself as a topic, I think, because as you say, very near and dear to your heart. Um, can you share with us a little bit about your journey with that, especially in the early
Yeah.
years, perhaps before
Well,
you took up running?
my son was diagnosed in year 10, quite late, really, as a child. And then through meeting different people, but mainly meeting my partner, Siobhan, who has worked with autism or in the autism world for about 26, 27 years. So there really is nothing she doesn't know about autism. She's a principal for a sixth form college for for a company. So she's the principal for the college, but equally residential homes from 16 to 25-year-olds. So she saw it in myself. So it was a conversation we had about my son. Then it was like, well, have you ever been, do you think that you're autistic type thing? Was the question I asked her, and she was like, yeah, I think you are. And so we went from there. And then since then, my daughter is going through the process now. But anybody that knows my daughter, she's autistic. Both my kids are functional, but autism's very personal to the individual. So there's three of us in our house, myself and my two kids, and we're all different. We have different challenges, we have different needs, um, which makes life at times difficult, but equally a lot of fun. My daughter is fiercely proud that she's autistic. She will tell anybody that will listen that she is autistic. And, we don't use the word normal. There's no such thing in her vocab. So, yeah, so that's sort of my background. I mean, I was in the military I went through Catholic boarding school, even though I was Protestant, because my dad was in the forces. And then, so that was challenging in its own right, being Protestant in a Catholic school, being the smallest kid, the usual stuff that a kid thinks. But obviously, looking back on reflection, and the challenges I must have possessed, sort of with the teachers being autistic, and obviously autism was just not known really. The nuns and the priests they didn't know what autism was, nor did I. So going through all that, going into the military, having a very successful career in the military, finishing up as a one-officer class one, and the Gavs and Major in Brunei, despite being autistic, without knowing it. And on reflection, I would argue that autism has actually helped me with the single focus and the obsessive focus it gives you. And anyone that knows me, I have a extremely obsessive focus on running in particular, but equally in a race, I become focused on one thing, which is great, but that can manifest other issues and problems further down the line. So yeah, I mean, autism's close to me because obviously personal to my children, and that's important. But equally, I work in schools and I see autistic kids and the challenges that possesses for them individually, but equally to their parents and the family life. So it's important for me to give back really, give back to the autism world in the sense of awareness, because it's been good to me, actually. I don't think I would have had the career that I had without being autistic. So for me personally, it's a plus. But there is obviously some real negatives to it. And I see that within my children in different ways.
Absolutely. Well, it's first of all, it's a fantastic insight to give people the context for what's to come with our talk. But as well as that, the fact that you've explained it as a gift and explained some of the positives, I was pretty sure you would do that. I was hoping you would do that because it really does have some upsides as well. Now,
Mm,
something to touch on with this before we get into the running, when it comes to the understanding of autism, say when you were growing up to now, when your children are growing up and everything, there is perhaps more understanding, although I think there's still a way to go as well. Can you
mm.
share with us a few of the differences that you've seen
Yeah,
in terms of
I mean,
people?
obviously, yeah. I mean, that's a great question, Liam. I mean, when I went through school, autism was just basically not heard of. Well, I certainly never heard of it. So I certainly don't look back and blame anybody because we just didn't know. So it's certainly not a criticism of the obviously processes at schools and so forth. Even the military, I can't, I mean, if I went to join the army now, for example, and said I was autistic, there'd be massive red tape trying to stop me from joining, arguably. So, I mean, although they are got better, it wouldn't be as easy as what I did when I got in, obviously in 1988. So now with my kids, and I see the schools and how they're configured, teachers are more aware of it. They're more aware of the sort of telltale signs. Like my son, when he was a little kid, he was obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, and it's anyone that knows and speech therapist. He went to a speech therapist, don't know how many times. The signs were there for everybody to see, and now people would just spot that instantly. With my daughter, girls tend to mask it a lot better than boys, so it's really hard to see it in girls because they naturally just hide it and mask it. And with my daughter, it was Siobhan again that just said, have you had Kira sort of, as she gone through the process? And I was like, no, not really. She goes, I would 100% Kira's autistic. And when I spoke to her teachers, they were like, we've had that thinking, we thought that. So then it sort of goes from there. So teachers are more aware of it now, definitely, which is a great thing, which is a good thing. But equally, as I said, every person that's got autism, their journey is different. People, don't like my daughter really can't deal with noises. And so we go to a restaurant, we have to go literally first thing. We have to be in the corner away from everything. Now she will have her ear defenders on. She wears jewelry because she chews a lot. So she has different challenges, but where she's very good is will not shy away from the fact and the difficulties it gives her. She will overcome it, and she has, to be fair. She challenges it. So the society of today is completely different society than it was 20, 30 years ago. And that can only be a good thing. But there's a lot more to do, to be fair. A lot more to do mainly with, I would argue, with help for the families. I see that in schools, with the kids in particular. Because yes, we said the kids have got autism, but there's a bigger problem or help's more required for the kids and more than the families. So, if I've always said if I ever had a lot of money, it would go into, a holiday place for disabled or autistic kids and families that they could go and have a holiday and chill. That's generally what I would 100% do. Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely got better. Definitely got better.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot more awareness, a lot more understanding.
Yeah.
As you say, work to be done, but very much. Before we delve into the running itself, one other question about this. with yourself personally, coming from an era where this wasn't understood, I think it's relevant to touch on a few areas of how you adapted your life
Yeah.
without knowing what it was really, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when I found out I was autistic, you naturally will reflect on um, on your life, you know, because one of the traits is you can be quite rude without even knowing you're rude. You will say something that you think is genuinely a bit of praise, or you're giving someone a compliment, but actually it's not a compliment. It's you think it's naturally a compliment, but then actually afterwards you go back and go, oh, actually that wasn't really. So you look back. So I've looked back in my life and gone, actually, do you know what? I never understood why that person took it that way. Then I've looked back and gone, oh, actually, yeah. So I've done that a lot, massive reflections on what I've done. And I was very lucky that I had the units I served within the army were genuinely quite small and quite niche. So those that sort of were close to me didn't know me for like 6 months. They knew me for years. So they knew my strengths and my weaknesses. And I owe so many people within the military such a lot, to be fair, for putting up with some of the things, perhaps. But I was lucky. I'm very lucky. My small little element of friends that I've got, I've known them now for 20, 30 years. And I know I could phone Gareth up or Janine up in particular. Obviously my brother Fraser, and within a minute they'll drop everything to come, and vice versa. Um, but yeah, I owe them a lot. Yeah, there's a few people, my Commando brothers, my Airborne brothers. I owe them a lot, absolutely. Um, and I'm more aware of that now than I was 2 years ago.
Well, that's a wonderful thing in itself, to be honest, in terms of people who understand this, but more importantly, people who appreciate you for who you are,
Yeah,
without needing to put any label on it, really is
correct.
a good, a very, very good thing. So, when it comes to running itself as a topic, starting from the beginning, where that started for you, and if it's something you always did, or
I mean, as I said, I was at a Catholic boarding school, and I was never very academic. I mean, I wasn't interested in Latin. I wasn't interested in that type of stuff. And so my escape, and it was an escape, was cross country running. It was just naturally, the one thing. I remember being a little kid running against the big kids in prep school, and it was like, one particular nun. Never forget her, Sister Peter. She sort of mothered me a lot in that school because I was the smallest kid, and when it came to sports day, she was just like, just do your thing. Don't worry, just go and do it. And I won all the races, and it was like, I'm good at this. I can do this. I can't do the rest of the stuff, but I can actually do this. And then I just just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the fact that it was you, your body, your feet, just that's it. And it taught me so much about myself, how much I can push myself, and it always stayed with me. And I've just always loved the sport. I've done it because I love the running. It's not because in the army it helps you. Obviously, it can help you get promotion and so forth, other things. It was never about that. It was actually, I can do this, and I need to do this. This is my escape. This is good for my mental health. This is good for me as a person. It always made me feel good about myself. And it obviously helped me in the military because certain courses I did, if you can run, you can you sort of stand out really in some respects. But I just fell in love with it at school, and then I went to the sort of secondary college, Cotton College. I ran, and again it was my escape. It was me, and yes, you're in a team, which is always brilliant when you're in a cross country team. It's not just about the good runners or the faster runners. It's also about the people that are the 8th or 9th or 10th runners. They're the people that matter. So it was always about them as well. And I love that sort of element to it, the team element to it, which is anyone that knows about running in sort of a club run, it's always about the team. It's not about the individual. You're part of it and you're an important part. You've got a job to do. So I've always loved that. I love the fact that, and And I cannot lie. Being a Protestant in a Catholic school, coming in first was pretty cool at the time, because I used to get a lot of grief. I used to get a lot of grief. So it was nice to say, well, actually, I might be 5'2" at the time, or 5'3", but you know what? We'll see. And it was always, and that's, you build that inner strength from it as well. So I enjoyed running all my life, and I also love coaching. I get a lot of thrills out of coaching. I'm very lucky. Some of the athletes I've coached to success. That's always nice to see. But running's been through my life. I lost it. I was injured in 2013 after having I won the Great Britain Half Marathon Championships for my age group, and I tried to break the world record for Land's End to John O'Groats. I was injured before I went. I should never have done it. And it was my fault, no one else's, and there's only myself to blame. I got run off the road, but that's neither here or there. I should never have been on the start line anyway, so it was my fault. I had 8 years out, nearly, out of the sport because due to injury, and I had to have an operation on my leg because I had what was called acute compartment syndrome, which is basically means your muscle can't expand, so they have to cut it open and then get rid of the dead tissue and so forth. So I had that. I got told I would never race again. So I'd lost my escape, the love of my life. And my mental health suffered. I was just lost, really. And I was doing things, I was getting involved in things that weren't me, really. It's not what I care about. It's not what I love. But then my friend, during COVID, during the second phase, he was like, should we go for a run? And I couldn't do 3 miles. I was just short of 13 and a half stone. And I was like, I couldn't do 3 miles. I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to get healthy. So I forced myself to get healthy. I ran through a lot of pain, a lot of tears. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, going running, so no one would see me because I was embarrassed. Wrongly, but that's how I was at the time. I felt really embarrassed about myself, that I let myself get in that state. And then my friend said, look, let's go and do a 100 miler. So we'll give ourselves 8 months and we'll get training for a 100 miler. So Mel sadly got injured. So I went in, I got trained, got better and better and better. And I was like, actually, I'm doing okay, And then I went and did the 100 miler, the GB Ultras 100 miler, great race. I was fortunate enough to win that. Which I didn't think I would do. I thought I'd do 24 hours. I did 18 hours in the end. And I was like, I can do this. But when I finished, it wasn't jubilation. I didn't finish it and went, oh, brilliant, I'm back. And it was like, there's still something not right. Something's still missing. I'm not flowing. There's something not right. And talking to Siobhan, who knows me better than anybody, she was like, well, it's because you're not eating right. Your diet's wrong. You're sort of doing everything to the extreme, And so now I'm in a far better place in my running. And then, I like to see people succeed. So I go and help out at races. And there's nothing better than seeing someone that they don't necessarily believe that themselves that they can do it, and then they do it, and you see the joy that brings. I get a lot of joy out of that now. So yeah, and then obviously to raise awareness for autism was always on my mind. How can I do it, And then there was always, can someone go from one side of Scotland over the uplands, which is a race, GB Ultras race across Scotland it's called. It's over uplands. It's the same height. The elevation is the same as Everest. And they'd always been taught, can someone go there and back? And I sat there and did the numbers because I'm a numbers person. And that's mainly for my autism. I'm not a words person, I'm a numbers. So I sat there and did the numbers and went, you can do it. I could do this in 7 days. And I spoke to Siobhan and she was like, well, let's have a look at it. And she's the balanced one. So she sort of looked at it. And I was like, I can do this. And she went, well, let's just do it then. Let's just do it. Let's not say it. Let's just do it. And I was like, okay, let's train. So we came up with a plan, both of us, to be fair, and with the help of GB Ultras. I have to say that they were fantastic. The whole community came rallied around me. I couldn't have done it without them. It's a fact. And then I thought, right, okay, let's do this. So then we did that last April, and it was a fantastic adventure, great adventure, pure joy, to be honest. Um, and we raised a lot of money for the National Autistic Society, which is important. But the most important thing was to raise awareness, to say, look, actually, I'm autistic, but it gives me an advantage. If I use it in the right way, I channel my obsessive focus. But I'm lucky and blessed because I've got Siobhan. So when my obsessive focus goes, or the tilt goes too much, she'll just give me a look now. She doesn't even have to say anything. And I know straight away, okay, I'm too much. And recently, myself and Siobhan have done a race across Scotland together. She had a broken leg last year. She had a heart attack. She got the all clear in January, and we just did it a few weeks ago. So I ran with her. So we did the race across Scotland one way, and so yeah, that was a fantastic adventure again. So yeah, it's running's it's important to me, but it's my vehicle to raise awareness. I've been given that talent, and that's how I view it, to be positive and say, look, well, actually, this is my talent I've been given, and it's a way and means for me to raise awareness, to say, look, actually, you know, despite being autistic, as some people may say, I've had a successful career. I've got two fantastic kids. I've got a great partner, very fortunate and lucky. And, I've got a great coach, Megs. She's fantastic. And, I've been successful. And, you can be. You can have a successful life in whatever field you want to. And that's what I'm trying to get through to my kids. Whatever you want to do, use that obsessive focus that we've given, because it is an advantage if you use it right and you're aware of the drawbacks. Life can be good.
Absolutely. Well, it's an incredible story. It's an incredible message as well, of hope and inspiration that you put out there. Um, I'll touch back on a couple of things there in just a moment, but before we do, with your children, do they run as well? Do they ever?
No, they're, you know, I'm a big believer, and I've always said to them, you have to do what you love,
Mm,
not necessarily what I love. You know, um, be yourself, and whatever that is. The golden rule in our house is, as long as you don't hurt anybody or cause offence knowingly, everything's fine. Just be yourselves, and believe in what you want to believe in. I don't force anything on them, and they one's really, her obsessive focus is on facts. So any fact in life, she will go and Google it, find out what that fact is. She's like a trivial pursuit, general knowledge, everything. And my other child is basically anything to do with anime, Japanese culture. That includes the language, learning the language, their customs, anything to do with Japan. They're focused on that, and that's we're completely different on that. Although my son did do cross country, and within 3 weeks he was brilliant, and then he just said, "Oh, that's me, I'm doing it." But that's fine, each to their own, as I say.
yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. Individuality, being your authentic self.
Yeah,
That type
absolutely.
of message is absolutely brilliant. So, in terms of the impact that you're having on the autistic community through your running and through the awareness that you are raising, obviously you started doing this for quite personal reasons, but it's getting quite a reach now. I mean, there's articles out there on you, and
Yeah.
you're doing interviews like this and everything. How do you feel about the impact that you're having and the scope of the responses that you get, including people wanting to do interviews like this or that type of concept?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I work in schools, so a couple of the schools, obviously, with the head teachers and the teachers, they all know me, and they all know that I'm autistic. I wear an autism awareness badge every day at work on purpose. I run because you have these backpacks, but the race vests. I always have my pin on there. So, and in the school, I've done a couple of talks to the kids, because I can reflect on my life. That I was in this military, I did commando course, I did my pre-power course, I went to this country, went to that country, I did all these things, and so that I can use it that way in the schools, which is actually a privilege. Actually, it's really really cool. It's really I'm going to try and do more and more, and just keep making that awareness going. But as I said, it's not just me. There's Siobhan. Obviously, she's been in autism world 27 years or whatever it is now. It's her life, and it's there's nothing she doesn't know. And as I said, she is so positive about it. She could tell stories about everything. She just knows. And my daughter, she at every opportunity, she will tell everyone about it. And she's so positive about it in the sense of, I'm autistic, and she will wear headphones even though she doesn't need to. On a photo, she just says, "Look, I'm autistic. I'm different. I am myself," which is really cool. And some of the races, like I race sometimes in a Thomas the Tank Engine t-shirt. All the others have got these fancy t-shirts on. I've got Thomas the Tank Engine, or I've got an Autism Awareness t-shirt on. And so we do it subtly, but we do it in a way that people come and ask you. And I think that's a really good way of doing it as well. Because everyone's journey in the autism world is different, as I said many times, but it is so true. Siobhan said that to me once, and I was like, how can it be? But then when you get to know about autism and read up about it, it is, there is some families that have some real struggles, real struggles. And the more we can sort of help and raise awareness, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely incredible. So obviously, we spent a little bit of time looking back with some of these things, but in terms of looking forward as well, with running, with autism awareness, and with the connection of the two, what are some of your future plans, with regards to that side of things?
Well, last year obviously it was all about Siobhan sort of, and a lot of people actually helped me do what we did. So now on the Someone on the Way, there's a plaque there. It says autistic runner. I was the first person to ever do the out and back, and it has all the other people that helped me's names on there. So that's there forever. But this year was all about really doing things collectively with Siobhan. We're still raising awareness towards them because people know me. We still wear, as I said, t-shirts and pins, and that's all important. But equally, next year we're sort of planning that now. So it's going to be a bit of a mixture. So I'm going to do some of my own stuff. So I'm going to be racing and flying the flag for autism. Again, myself and Siobhan are going to do the Offers Dyke 185-mile race together basically it's the length of Wales, basically. So it's a very famous trail. So that's something myself and Siobhan are doing together, which is really good. So we're sort of going through that plan as we speak. But I definitely want to do something else, but it has to be right. And the sort of motives have to be pure. Because when you're pushing your body to its limit and you're absolutely tired and you're worn out and everyone's telling you can't go, if your motivation is pure, it doesn't even become a problem. It's when I did that 441 miles across Scotland, there was never once I didn't think I would not do it. Ever. It was just, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get from here to here today, from there to there tomorrow, and so on. And the challenge has to be the right one and not just sort of rushed in. I've learned that just take a step back, and it's all about raising awareness towards them, really. So there is plans, definitely. It's there's certain races we've signed up to, but as an individual, there's a couple of races out there that I really like the look of. There's Brighton to London. There's that's we've got to check the calendar first. There's a tunnel. There's some famous races out there. So yeah, there's a lot of plans.
Absolutely. Well, the future is very bright in terms of the next steps. And I think following on from that, if people would like to reach out to you and
Yeah.
collaborate with any autism awareness and find out more about it, contribute in any way, whatever form that takes, what is the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Just look me up on Facebook, Woody Felton, or go to Instagram, Autistic Runner, and you can find me on there anyway. And um, ask it. I'm an open book. It is what it is, really. But yeah, because there is, as I said, I do consider myself to be extremely lucky, Liam. The people around me that have helped me, um, they're just brilliant. They're champions, every single one of them. And I've had some brilliant people help me, but the GB Ultra community have been really particularly kind to me. I have to say that. And even when I can be very single tunneled vision, so when I go to a checkpoint, I can just be like, I've got to go there, do this, do that, and I'll go through that. But that can sometimes come across a bit rude because they go quite easy, because I don't go, high and all this. I try and do that now, but it's just because I'm singly focused on doing that and getting out. And they sort of all know me, they sort of go, oh, but they're brilliant people. I can't fault them, to be honest.
That's good. It's really good to give them a mention as well because from a certain perspective, people do a lot behind the scenes, don't they? So it's good
Yeah,
to
they do. And, there's certainly for me, and from a kid, from sort of a number of runners I know within the community, they do a bit more than just put races on, do the races, behind the scenes. We sort of got a good community where people will help a lot of people that are struggling with different things, to be fair. So the community is in some respect more important than the actual races, I would argue, but it's obviously a part of it.
absolutely. And one other thing that I'd like to touch on, you mentioned at the beginning about coaching and about sort
Yeah.
of back and the joy that you get from that. I'd like to go a little bit deeper into that topic and find out a little bit more about what you do with that and the way that people benefit from it and the way that you benefit from it as well.
One of the first coaching jobs I had was in the army. The army ladies athletics team hadn't won for a while, so my local unit team hadn't won, but we had some great athletes. It just wasn't gelling. And then I said, look, can you run it? We want you to take over the ladies team. So I was like, I don't really want to be honest, because I was constant and focused on myself. But then I sort of got talked into it, and it was the best thing ever because I took the team on and picked the right people. And because of my single focus and the way I was focused on getting the best out of the ladies, but putting the best team out there to win. We won everything that year, and the ladies were fantastic. And it taught me a lot about myself, because I got so much more to seeing certain ladies win that weren't necessarily the best, but they would do the best for the team, and see them achieve but this is nothing better than that. It's better than competing in a lot of respects, because you're seeing people achieve things that they don't necessarily believe they can do. So that's where the coaching element comes in, and that's more about the mind, getting the mind ready, especially in athletics, when reality the event could last 20 seconds or a minute. One mistake can cost you in the 400 meters. Even at 800 meters, you can't really gain back from a mistake. So that coaching and getting into the ladies' minds that they are good enough. I wouldn't select them if they weren't. I wouldn't put them in, but in a situation I didn't think they could do. So that was a really good thing. And then I coached a lot of teams for different events against different. So one of the competitions was the Canadian Mountain Man competition, and I was based out in Canada at the time, and we wanted to put in a British Army team in this it's a huge competition in Edmonton, and it basically consists of 19 miles carrying 36 pounds on your back. Then you put another further 74 pounds on your back. So you're carrying basically £110 for 2 miles. Then you kayak down a river for 10 kilometers, and then you carry £36 for about another 5.5 miles. And your times are added together, your top 4 times, to give you your result. So I was asked to coach the team because I was basic commando and I was an army runner. And I was very lucky and blessed the people we had there. And so we got a team together. I coached them, and everything I do, I break it down into bits. And especially something like that, because there's different elements to it. So we trained really hard. I really trained the guys hard, and we ultimately ended up winning. I mean, I came second overall, but that was fine. That's great. But actually, my time was more important than my position because of the way they did the scoring system. And then we just literally, the guys came in, and it was just brilliant. It was just great to see. Again, we won it because of, arguably, not because myself or another lad that were really naturally gifted. We won it on a certain person that, Kev, that, he trained so hard, gave it everything he had, wasn't as gifted, but he won it for us, really, on his performance that day, because he just raised, he in my head, I had a time, and he surpassed that time by a huge amount. So, he sort of won us that. So that was one competition. That was great because obviously you're beating different armies, Canadians, Americans, and the French, and all these other different nations that turned up, Germans and that. So that was really cool because that you can't help but have national pride at stake. So that was really cool. And then I coached some guys in the Swiss, again, it's marathon, but basically carrying the rifles and your kit. And I coached a team there, and we won that again. We won that. That was pretty cool, winning that in Switzerland over the mountains. That was really good. I mean, I came second in that. Funny old thing, I came second in that one as well, but as an individual. But as a team, we won it, and that was the most important thing. And then I've coached many cross-country teams to win in different groups, and I've coached in civilian life, various athletes, and to see them succeed, it's just joy, really. And I get asked a lot, like, from different runners, especially in the ultra world now, what do you do here? What kit do you use? How do you train for this? How do you train for that? And mostly in the ultra world, it's, yes, physical is one aspect, of course it is, but it's getting the mind right. So when everything's telling you to quit, to give up, finding that space and that self-belief that actually you will go through it, and it's just, your body will come back. The human body is an amazing thing, and it repairs itself even at its lowest. And when you understand that, and I've done a lot of that recently, so that's really important to me, actually. But yeah, coaching is definitely a great thing to do. It's a great thing to do. See people. I've been very lucky and blessed because I've had great coaches in the army. I had, Steve Lonnan, Andy Martin, great guys. I've had some civilian coaches, Dave Norton, ultimately an unbelievable human being and a fantastic coach. So, you learn different things from them that you implement into your sort of thing. But equally, I'll say, I've learned in my coaching, sort of in the way I train now, and your training evolves the older you get. It has to. You can't train the way I trained 10 years ago. I can't do that. So you have to train differently, and you have to train a bit smarter, to get the best out of what you're trying to achieve. So, and obviously science has moved on, equipment has moved on, and you have to move with that, So, like in my day, we never really had heart rate monitors. We never had testing your blood sugar levels. We never had, energy products. We didn't have all that type of stuff, but now we do have it. So it's important to me that coaching, or giving advice, you'll say now, anybody asks me about running, I will always, give them advice, no matter who, because
Well, while we're on the topic of advice, just briefly as well, because we'll wrap this up shortly because we've talked about some really good topics and it'll be a good length for people to follow. But before we do, in terms of giving one or two pieces of advice, more specifically for the ultra or the very long distance races, you said just now about it being quite a mental thing, which I hear a lot with these interviews,
Yeah.
the mental strength and conditioning. Could you share with us one or two tips? And the reason I ask this is for any runners listening to this who may never meet you personally. I mean, I hope they do, but if they don't get a chance, some of you, a little bit of your wisdom could still filter down. Now, it's too much of a broad topic to talk about
Yeah.
everything, and I think if people want to do that, they should come and find you. But maybe
Yeah.
if one or two things,
I mean, firstly, in the ultra world, I'm a big believer in planning. In anything actually in life, you should always plan. And planning long term is always better than short term. Sometimes you've got to do short term planning because the race may be quicker or whatever, or in a short period of time. But generally speaking, if you like I said before, we're planning myself and Sean now next year already, so we can get our schedules and our planning correct. And then it's always in sequence to the big one. There'll be little races and different distances that will be a build up phase to that. But equally during that, we're doing that not only because of the physical aspects, which is obviously important to build up, so you're peaking at the right time, but mentally, you know. So we're not trying to do things too taxing, on the mind, um, because your mind can only take so much. It's quite exhausting to do a 200-mile race, not just physically but mentally. It drains you. At the end, you're normally like you're deflated. You're like, well, I've done that. What am I going to do now? You know. So it's sort of preparing your mind. And during the events, I always say to people, like, I know a lot of people wear headphones. I never wear headphones. My mind's always clear. It's always me. And absorb the area around you. A lot of runners will just run and race on a trail, but they're not taking in around them the scenery that they're running on. Some of the trails in the United Kingdom and in the world, enjoy the surroundings, and enjoy where you're running, and that will take your mind off it. And obviously, it's about occupying your mind. But equally, it's breaking it down. So when I'm running, like when I was in that 400-mile run or the Bush of Vaughan, we'll get to a checkpoint, and before we get to that checkpoint, we are going into it with a plan. We need this, we need food, we need changing our socks, we're going to have a bit of sleep maybe, so we already have a plan of what we're going to do and what time we're going to leave. So because it's very often this is the case in the ultra world, people will get to a checkpoint, they're extremely tired, may be going for 30-40 hours or whatever it is, and they just sit there looking at the wall, and their mind is already going into negative thoughts. It's like, oh my, I can't, and they don't get out the checkpoint, they're finished because they haven't had that plan going into that checkpoint. They haven't got, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get out here. And I always give myself a little window. I'm going like, I'm leaving an hour to an hour 15. I'm leaving, we're gone. And I'm terrible for it because I'm like, when I do with Siobhan, bless her, I'm like, Siobhan, we need to go now. We need to go now because that's my autism kicking in. It's just, I'm leaving now because my clock says we've been here an hour and 15 minutes. We're leaving now, which it is what it is. It's just a way, but it's having that plan. But when your body is telling you you can't do anymore, you're down, maybe it's really hot, you're dehydrated, you're burnt, you've got you can't eat because your stomach's upset because of the heat. What I do then is, and that's happened to me a few occasions, is I just remind myself of something like, for myself, I'll go, okay, I will come through this because I've done it. I know I will get through this and I will get better. I will get better. I'll get better. And then when I'm rock bottom, like I was on the out when I was running back from there was one particular point where I was very, very low. I just remembered when I was at school, and it was just like, you know what? Everyone said I can't do this. Okay, but I can, and I will. And it's going to a place that makes you happy, whatever that is in life. And, I just think of my kids, or I think of something that someone may have said to me. Take your mind into a positive way, and just try and be, I mean, I'm positive about life anyway, but just try and be anything that you can grasp that's positive. And it doesn't have to be about running. Just get your brain positive thinking, and it works. But yeah, that's one tip. And just be prepared. Know that be prepared. Say to yourself before you do any ultramarathon running, I'm going to have a bad patch. No matter if you're the fastest or the slowest, you will have a bad patch. It's just life. Right, okay. And accept that you're going to have a bad patch. And when you accept before you started that you will have a bad patch, but you will come through it, and then you will have another good bit, is actually just go, okay. So if you may have a bad patch, I've had races before, that first 3-4 miles, I've gone and gone, I'm not going to finish this. But actually, this is my bad patch. I'm having my bad patch now. And that's fine. I'll get through this. And then it happens. And just keep those, as I always say to people, just, especially in the ultra world, eat, sleep, repeat, and run. Just walk. Just get those legs. Keep going, and that's it. Just enjoy it. Life's too short to worry about. If no one fails in an ultramarathon running. If someone starts that race, for me, irrespective if they finish it, don't finish it, don't get a medal, or get a medal, they're all winners because they've tried. That's all you can do. If you've genuinely given it 100% and not made it, you're definitely a winner, because you can't do any more. So how can that possibly be a fail? It can't.
Absolutely. Well, that last bit really ties in my mind to what we were saying earlier on about individuality and people being their authentic selves. You've broken the race down to being a very personal journey for people, in a sense, competing with themselves. But what's also good is some of the mindset topics you shared there. They are applicable to life as well as applicable to life.
Yes.
So it's absolutely brilliant. Well, we've talked about some good topics today, and we've got a nice mix of some fun stories from your races and going a little bit deeper into the mindset and motivation, things that people can use. So we'll wrap this up shortly, as it'll be a good length for people to be able to enjoy
Yeah.
and digest. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with our listeners, or have we covered?
My last thing would be is, in life, in my experience, everyone will tell you 99% of people will say you can't achieve something, be whatever it may. It doesn't matter. Climb Mount Everest, become a pop star, do a race, whatever. I always say to my kids and everyone else, it doesn't matter what that 99%. It's what you think that matters. And that's how I've always lived my life. If I listened to the people that said I couldn't do something, I would never, I certainly would never been the runner I was or am. I would never have passed my commando course because I was too small. I couldn't carry the weight. I'm 5'6". You're never going to do that. Or you're never going to do the power course because you're too small again. I've had it all before, and I say to people, just it's what you believe that matters. And I mean, Siobhan's a prime example. If people are honest, before that last race we did, and because she'd only been training she'd been out for a year and trained out. If people were honest and said, "Will Siobhan do it?" I reckon at least 80% of people would have gone, even though not maliciously, but they would have said, "I just think it's a race too far for her." And yet she didn't just do it; she did it really easily, because she had gone through the whole stages and the whole process, and she'd got the mind right and clear. So, just if you want to do something, make it happen. Just make it happen. Don't worry about the noise around you. It's not necessarily ill feelings. It's just people's honest opinion, and that's cool. That's great. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's your opinion that matters. That's how I live my life. I don't listen to what other people think. If I believe I can do something or want to do something, let's just make it. Just do it. It doesn't matter. If you do it and you're successful, great. If you're not successful, at least you can turn around and say, I tried.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's rock solid advice for anything, for any part of life that people are working on. Well, you're an inspiration, my friend, 100%.
No, thank you for your time, Liam. It's really appreciated.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for being an open book and
No worries.
sharing so much about your life. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.